Hello everyone and welcome to this video. I greeting you with an Italian espresso because in this video I'm going to take you through all the journey that a lady from Colombia took in Italy for 3 months because she wanted to learn Italian. My name is Leonardo and I choose this language and this character because Italian is a language that I really like. It's one of my favorite languages and I would like to learn them myself. So I choose it because I would like to see how the brain works during all the process of learning a new language and how as an English teacher can basically teach myself how to learn it and how can I use all this information to learn this new language. So welcome again and let's start. So we are going to get into In Viaggio Italiano, learning a new language a day. So here is where the presentation begins. So I called that lady Carolina Lopez. She is the little traveling bird. She likes traveling everywhere. She is 34. Like I said, she is Colombian. She is a journalist and a communication leader on her organization. She loves traveling and culture. Her native language is Spanish and the target language is English. What is her motivation? First of all, she wants to write a book about her trip. Okay, she's going to travel for 3 months to Italy. She wants to communicate with local people, learn colloquial expressions, ordering food in restaurants, in trattorias, and traveling all around Italy to get better on her listening skills. The learning context is all the tourism and the culture immersion. So, un viaggio indimenticable a través de nuestro cerebro. Here is Carolina. She is our traveler. È qui che inizia il suo viaggio. So we are going to get in different steps, in different processes. The first of all is how the brains work in the part of vocabulary, the writing process, and all the works that the brain has to do when we learn how to speak another language, and the speaking challenges and strategies that we can use. Also, something important is the psycholinguistic challenge. What difficulties does she face learning this language? And all the brain process, we are going to get into a map, into an image to see what cortex in the brain helps to do that. And at the end, I'm going to get a little reflection about what I learned during her process to learn the language. So let's start with the first one, vocabulary in Italian. So, like the quote said, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So we are going to see how she learned with images, flashcards. All right. So the first is the process that she wants to do with the vocabulary. She wants us to learn vocabulary. How is she going to do it? By listening Italian songs, listening Italian pronunciation of the words, labeling objects in her house, like for example the television or the refrigerator, the computer. So using the kind of flashcards. What are the brain areas that activated in that process? First of all, the awareness area. That area helps with the comprehension of new words. When you listen a new word and you try to understand and process the image between the audio, the brain area helps us to processing the semantic expression and the audio expression. Also helps the learning to understand and storage all the new information, like for example finisterra, like it's a window, or cibo, like is food. Also in that process, the prefrontal cortex make the part of attention of the memory. That area holds all the information, manage to control the information, and stop the Spanish, that is her first language, to appear in the moment that she's trying to think in Italian, and only let the Italian begins focusing only in Italian words. Another important area is the hippocampus. Hippocampus stores new vocabulary. So basically it's the long-term memory area of our brain. So that's why we can process it in our first language or in a new language when we see, for example, a car. So we know exactly that is a car, we know with the picture that is a car, and we are processing the word because we recover the memory, right? Or for example, a bicicleta in Italian. She only see the picture of a bicycle and the brain, the hippocampus, immediately think that it's a bicicleta because it memorized the words. Okay, so those three parts of the brain helps her to learn different vocabularies. What is her story in this part? She learns the expression gelato, associating the ice cream when she get into an ice cream shop in Florence. She went there, she see the name of the restaurant, she saw the name of the product, gelato, and she now processing the picture of the gelato, the having an ice cream on her hands and practicing the vocabulary. Also, she does that learning items on a supermarket like pane, formaggio, vino, things that are usual for her, things that she has to buy very often, once a while, and she can learn all that. The support strategy that she can use is the repetition. Repetition apps or flashcards went to those places and repeat. Repeated is a repetition that kids do when they are babies or children, or when parents start to say that, say mom. You know, so the repetition helps the learners to memorize the words. Okay? Also, she can combine it with audio, visual flashcards, textual exposure, speaking with people, and can help with that part of the vocabulary. So the brain, with all the three areas that we learn, understand Italian in the auditory cortex. When first they pick up the sound, understand the sound, the worker area processes the meaning, and the hippocampus storage the meaning, all the word, all the listening, the pronunciation, and the picture. Okay? And the angular gyrus links written and spoken Italian in the prefrontal cortex and helps Carolina rehearse vocabulary during the practicing. So it's a process that helps and happens at the same time and helps her to practice. So we can see here Carolina trying to do what we learned. Está imparando 9 parole con le immagini, leggendo e ripetendo. Now, the part number 2, writing in Italian. Writing in Italian can be a little easy, if we may say, because Italian and Spanish are very close. Both of them are a Romance language. So we have similar words like familia in Spanish, famiglia in Italian, but very different, very similar in the writing, or importante in Spanish and importante the same in Italian. So that can help her to know how to write words and learn the spelling of the words. The grammar parallels are also similar because the conjugation of the verbs are very similar. We have here the gendered nouns, different like for example in English, and the structure are very close each other and match each other. The pronunciation can be a little tricky because the phonetic is different, but there are some sounds that are similar, and the easiest part is sometimes the pronunciation goes according to the writing. So it's easier for her, like the Spanish is the same. What are the brain areas that goes with the writing process? The angular gyrus, visual cortex, and working memory. How is she going to process all this part? As we know, she's trying to write a journey, a book, so she keeps a dial travel journal in Italian. She starts with small and short phrases about her trip, about her day, something very not difficult, and day by day she's going to write more complex sentences and learn on writing about the complete day, all the Italian activities that she do on the day, okay, using the brain of the area. How, for example, the Angus Gaius helps her to go into the Italian part. She can link the sound and the writing words. Okay, she can connect the part of the visual, audio, and semantic information at the same time. Okay, so she can see using her experience in Spanish and linking the word in English, because both of them share roots on their meaning. The working memory, as the name says, helps her to memorize the words, manage to remember all the words, and keep the attention of the sentences. Also make the coherence while she expressing in Italian or Spanish. And the visual cortex, that is the part of the occipital region, recognize written words and learn how to record and write the transfer between each of them. How is she going to, or what is her story here? She writes sentences like oggi ha visitato il Vaticano, right, about her day, spelling sentences on an email like pretosiani, like it's a reservation, very different, like in Spanish because it's reservación, even though that is more similar to English. But now, because she are staying in different areas, she has to use the word pretosane very often, so now she knows how to make it. Okay, now she's going to know the difference between Italian and Spanish. Like, for example, the ñ sound in Spanish, like a lasagna, but you don't write it with the ñ, you write it with the gn, lasagna. So she will understand that kind of differences and similarities in the phonetics. The support strategy that is important for her. Roleplay. Imagine that she, or try to remember what she did. Visual expressions using the flashcard that we learned about the vocabulary, but now put it in sentences. Practicing words, practicing structures with writing tasks, and do the analysis about if she is conjugating correctly the verbs, using the correct noun, all the sentences that she needs to use. Now, obviously, because writing is not an easy part, we can see her in this picture a little concentrated. So, Carolina racconta il suo viaggio nel suo diario. Now, speaking Italian, the most, and in my opinion, the most interesting part in learning a language. How can we communicate with people? First of all, because it's a traveler on a tourism sightseeing travel, for her, she needs to learn different sentences that can help her to communicate at first. The simple one, quanto costa questo? Okay, or how is she going to ask for something in a restaurant? Vorrei un caffè, per favore. Okay, mi scusi, dove è il bagno, when she needs to know something. But she can read the sentence, learn the sentences, and produce in speaking form. But how is she going to do that? In the part of the speaking, 4 areas in our brain activated at the same time. The first one is the broadcast area, that is the responsible of the production of the language that we're doing. Even could be Spanish, English, Italian, whatever. Right? She's going to, with the area, she's going to produce sentences and do the correctly grammar structure. Okay, and that can help her to make sentences like estoy imparando italiano. So she's like learning Italian. All right. Also, the motor cortex helps moving the lips, the tongue, the throat, the nose, the cheeks, the face, all the part that comes with a language and the correct pronunciation. Like, for example, the word arrivederci. Yeah, the lower R in Spanish is R, but in Italian, no. You don't say arrivederci. No, it's arrivederci. So she needs to know how to move the tongue, how to move her lips, the face, the facial expressions to pronounce well, and that is what the motor cortex helped her. Also, the cerebellum function and basal ganglia. In this part, it helps her to get the improvement or fluency, to not sound robotic, right? She, with that part, is going to sound more naturally, like a buongiorno, buonasera, buonanotte, no buongiorno, buonasera. No, that sounds like a very robotic, so this part of the cerebellum helps her to be more fluent in the process that she's doing. Also, the auditory cortex helps her to process the spoken sound, to open her mouth and produce sounds. That helps her to understand the phonemes, the phonetics, the different words that we have in Spanish. Like, for example, in Italian they have the li, the the subject connected to the verb in the pronunciation part. So that's the auditory cortex helps her to understand how to pronounce those words. The story for her is ordering food in a restaurant, like the expression that she learned before traveling. Vorrei una pasta alla carbonara, por favor. Now, with all the parts of the brain, she can pronounce well the word. Or, sto bene, grazie. Okay, very similar to in Spanish, but she will understand that is esto, estoy, right? Bene, no bien, grazie, right? No grazie, or gracias, no grazie. So all that part helps, all the brain helps her to make the context well. The strategy that she can use is, first of all, encourage emotional engagement. Making mistakes is one of the parts that we fear the most. When we are learning a language, all the people fear to make a mistake because people can understand you, or you will not be able to communicate yourself, or you will fear about people, make fun of you. So she needs to take out that fear. And how is she going to learn it? Learn 5 Italian new words every day. So if you can see, the vocabulary and the writing part comes together because she needs to learn the vocabulary. She needs to know all the grammar sentences in order to produce. She's also going to use flashcards, but now with long sentences to practice them, the sentences that we learned in the previous slides, and go with the audio pronunciation and the gestures that Italians make. So, working memory and hippocampal consolidation is the boost of this area. Now she's a little happy because she could order a pasta there. So Carolina está imparando a ordenare il cibo al ristorante. What are the psycholinguistic challenges that she faced? So, problemi di apprendimento. When someone is learning a new language, especially Italian when the person speaks Spanish, you can have a similitude of your native language or your first language into the second one. But that doesn't mean that there are not challenges that can affect the process that you produce and analyze. So let's see what are the challenges that she faced. The first challenge, it was the lexical interference. Like we happen in English, we have something that we call false friends. Like embarazada, that in Italian is imbarazzata. But those words are totally different because imbarazzata is like ashamed o apenada, y embarazada in Spanish is pregnant. So she first needs to take out the Spanish on her mind in order to not confuse the Italian. The phonetical transfer, the expressions with li or yi that doesn't exist in Spanish, also can affect the pronunciation and the listening comprehension. Another challenge that she could face there is the emotional factors. Feeling ashamed to speak, feeling not good enough to talk with other people, not have the confidence, the enough confidence to continue with the process, or there are some days that she could have or she could struggle with her pronunciation, so she will feel down or sad of it. So she needs to move on that. And the meta-linguistic awareness. So when you don't learn the correct grammar structure, you can have some gaps. You can misunderstand an expression or pronounce badly, or for example, don't use an article that is necessary, use the incorrect preposition, use the incorrect pronoun, for example. So that's why learning the grammar is kind of important in order to avoid those kind of mistakes. If we can see here, at first she's trying to buy something on a local market. She couldn't, so she struggled, she was feeling a little down, but at the end she managed to buy the tomato and imparò a parlare italiano senza confonderle le parole spagnole. Now, the important part, the brain process. Yeah, I explained all the cortex, the part of the brain, so it's a lot of information. But now we are going to see in real what are the processes that our brain works in cerebello. So, sarei felice di imparare l'italiano. How does the brain work? Remember, we are learning three parts: vocabulary, writing, and speaking. In the part of vocabulary, working area, prefrontal cortex, and hippocampus, the three of them. In the writing, angular gyrus, visual cortex, and memory working. In the speaking, Broca's area, motor cortex, auditory cortex, and basal ganglia and cerebellum, all at the same time. Because if you want to write, you have to think of the vocabulary, you have to speak on your mind with yourself, and then you write. Or for example, with the vocabulary, you have to look at the vocabulary, repeat it, so this part of the thinking, and if you want to practice more, you have to write. So the three of them at the same time. The same as the speaking. So all the process, all the brain works like a together object. So it's not just like the hippocampus start working and the other stop. No, everything at the same time works in order to learn a new language. So if you can see, we have the three areas here. We have the comprehension area, that is the Wicker's area, the angular gyrus is the writing, and the Broca's area is the speaking. We learned that in the comprehension, three parts of the brain activated. In the writing, other three parts, but in the speaking are four, because the speaking is more difficult and is the most difficult part to do. But those are the basic areas that we use in order to learn a language. Now, after the 3 months, she did it. She finally learned Italian. But now she knows that it's not just faced with the language, she's not just going there, it's practicing, it's understand how the brains work. So, alla fine Carolina ha imparato, ha conosciuto e è stata molto felice in Italia. Now, ¿qué es lo que ho imparato? What did I learn? What is my reflection here? I can say that I learned a lot because I understand that the language acquisition is a combination of different areas of the brain. It's not just about reading, writing, speaking, or grammar. No, it's just how your brain works, how the motivation works, in order that you can understand a new language. So I wrote something that is important, and I showed something of Leonardo da Vinci that said, like, a distracted mind is a mind that does not learn. And a new language requires as much attention as possible. Because you can see all the parts of the brain start, so you have to be very concentrated. That's why people say that learning a second language is the most difficult part, or the most difficult task to learn. And we can see that it's true because a lot of processes happen at the same time. Now, how Carolina's journey helped me? In my role as a teacher, it helped me a lot because it helped me to understand how my students' minds work. I can use that to control their minds, to shape their minds, and mold them in order to know exactly what they need. And also helps me a lot because as a teacher myself, I can know how to learn a new language. Yeah, I know Spanish, I know English, but I would like to learn Italian much better. So now I know what the part of the brain helps. I can investigate more how can I use those parts to get a little bit further on my language and apply those new strategies in my everyday life as a teacher, not just going with the theory. So, in order to know that the language can be learned using all the parts of our brain, I have a question for you. So, does age really influence how quickly and how well a person learns a new language? The age really matter, or is just about how you use your brain? So I give you that question so you can answer there. Here are the references that I use, and this is the end of her journey. So, grazie, io sono Gabriel Correal, sono un insegnante di inglese che ama l'italiano. Grazie a Carolina per avermi permesso di capire meglio come funziona il nostro cervello quando impariamo una nuova lingua.